3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be going over this guy's channel, Chetski. Now, over the last day or two, has been a little bit of drama regarding Beast and this guy's channel. So basically what happened is it started in their Discord with, I don't know how to pronounce it, I was calling Phoenix, I don't know how to pronounce that first part, but basically, where did he first post it? I think it was up a little bit. Let me find it here real quick. Yeah, right here. Here we go. So he posted right here yesterday in the morning. The Chesky guy that he asked him about damage versus crit build, and then when he saw that Phoenix here didn't totally agree that crit build was better, he timed him out for 24 hours. Now, I don't know how real or how manipulated, I guess is a word, this story is. I don't know how true or untrue. I wasn't there. I don't have screenshots of the chat or anything, so I don't know for sure. But that right there is pretty bad. Just taking it at face value. But yeah, typical say the world streamer being toxic and not friendly confirmed. Yep. Usually what you'll get within the say the world community, especially with high power levels. So then Beast thought it'd be a good idea to go into his chat, just mess around with him a little bit. We usually like to have a little bit of fun when people are being toxic and whatever. We like to have a little bit of fun. So he goes in his chat and just asks the basic question: is Sledgehammer or Rescue Trooper better? Now we'll get into our takes about it and what we think at the end, because Chetcha kind of makes our own point for us, which I'll get more into in a second. But a couple people say Sledgehammer, and then B says they're identical, mathematically identical, which I can back up with legit math. It's been proven time and time again that they are mathematically identical. And then this guy, Samulet or whatever, says one gives base damage, one gives crit bonus. That is true. But that doesn't mean they're not the same, or give the same effect, or same damage boost. And then they go on to give a couple more things. And B says here, Rescue Trooper gives a 1.5 times buff the base damage, and Slev gives a 2.2 times the crit. And then I assume here he said something, Check said something in stream, and then B says go ahead and multiply 1.5 times 1.5 for me and see what happens. And if you did know, that actually equals 2.25, and I can bring up a calculator and watch me search for it. 1.5 times 1.5, boom, 2.25. Maybe I'm just blind and those aren't the same thing. But then we moved on. They get into a little bit of a heat here, talk, and then he posted one more screenshot down here. Basically, again, I wasn't personally in the stream at the time, but I know Beast is a trustworthy source. He wouldn't lie about something like this. So basically, he just recounts, Chuck the whole stream was like, I'm right, you're wrong, sit down, little kid, and understand it's math and stop being salty, which is math. I don't know what math he was trying to show, and in his video, he does do some math, which I think is mostly correct, but he's interpreting it the wrong way. And yeah, like we saw before, his chat, and we'll see here in this picture, was being really, really toxic, and he was doing nothing to quell it. A couple of the mods even jumped in. And then he went to one of his videos, like he opened up one of Beast's videos, he talks about it here, and was dissecting it on stream about, I assume it was about Rescue Trooper Mirrors, I don't know the exact video he was talking about, but he did the math in front of 0.02% difference to crit, and then basically told him it didn't mean anything, and he was, he got really, really salty, and then timed him out. Yeah, he was being borderline abusive and was not friendly in any way possible. Was talking down to Beast, and he comes back, and then he's basically being attacked in chat here. This guy, a mod, I love it, says most kids never show math and just talk about what feels best, which is understandable in a game like Save the World. Of course, you have objectively good guns and guns that are objectively worse, but it's Save the World. Like, come on. You can level up any gun you want all the way, and if you're a high enough power level with the good group, any gun will work. Are guns better than other guns? Yes. Or some guns have higher DPS? Yes, some do. But can you use any gun you want? pretty much. But then he says down here he is a DPS stat lover. Like right up here he says, and is sort of complaining that people never talk about math. All they care about is what feels best. And then down here he's like kind of makes fun of Beast for liking stats. So I don't really see the point there, but yeah. And then down here this guy says can't handle real math question mark, but it's just a rando in chat. And then they go on to talk a little bit about different stuff like that. This guy thinks Beast or whatever. And that's about that. I'll get to this in a minute. I want to go through this video first and kind of break it down. I'm gonna skip around a little bit. I've already seen this video and I've dissected it fully on stream. So I'm not gonna dissect the whole thing, but I'll kind of skip around. Like I said, a lot of his math is accurate, and he's doing correct calculations here. He's just sort of interpreting it wrong, and getting the wrong opinion about it. So, there's really no need to really dissect his math here when he got it all right.
So, this video is something that's very, very common knowledge in the game, and that's additive versus multiplicative, which is...
You can see right off the bat, he's already somewhat talking down to his audience. Like within the first 10 seconds here, he's already like, well, this is already common knowledge in the game. Like, making you feel like you don't know common knowledge. Like, he's already talking down to his audience.
Stacking damage versus running crit. So, earlier...
And there is an actual difference there, but again, he's interpreting it very wrong, and I'll get back to that at the end.
Today on stream, somebody came to the stream, they kept saying like random crazy stuff, and I was just like, you don't know what you're doing. I broke the math down for him.
Calls out
and
Beast.
He kept saying more crazy stuff. So finally I was just like, dude, 24-hour timeout, come back tomorrow if you want to have a reasonable conversation.
If we look back at the screenshots and the whole past conversations you were having, he wasn't necessarily saying crazy stuff. He was just trying to explain why he thought Rescue Trooper Ramirez was better than the other dude. I keep forgetting the name of the other dude. Forgive me. I'm just going to call him the other dude for a lot of the video. Forgive me. I forget his name. But he was basically just trying to explain his point of thinking. And then you shut him down, watched his video on the subject, found that he was correct, and then shut it down even more and banned him while your whole chat, including mods, was attacking him. Makes sense. Sounds pretty crazy of him to me.
See ya. So then it felt like it was super debated because somebody named Beast on YouTube ended up coming to my stream on his Twitch name, XMrBeastX. And he got very upset because I thought his name was based off of, you know, the popular Mr. Beast. He said it wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't there when he created the account, but I don't know. The name Mr. Beast, it just sounds like it to me, right? So I tried to explain to him again the additive nature between the two different heroes that were in question. He was saying, he basically came in the stream and said that Rescue Trooper Ramirez represented the same exact amount of damage as Tactical Assault Sledgehammer. Because
it is. I will show you the math after we finish dissecting this video. But it is pretty much the exact same amount of damage if you actually do the math.
I was just like, no, it doesn't work that way.
It does work that way. We have the math to prove it.
It like quite literally does not work that way.
The math may be different, like you said, additive versus multiplicative, but at the end, that final number you get is pretty much the same.
So let me go ahead and let me click over to save the world really quick. Let me see which build we have. Now I'm going to just show you kind of the numbers theorized. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and you can pull all these numbers yourself in game. Obviously you're going to have to do the same process as me, but my physical numbers are going to be different than yours, right? So my numbers are actually physically going to be different than yours. And that's because of my hero setup, my rework, or my survivors, all of that. So there's a couple things that we need.
Like I said, I'm going to skip it on a little bit just because I've already seen all of this and I break it down in my stream. And like I said, a lot of this math is correct, so I'm not going to be totally trying to pick and choose flaws in his math, because at least to me it seems mostly not flawed.
Let me phone a friend for an assist. Okay, here we go. So this DPS
I love this part, by the way.
Is notoriously wrong. This DPS number here doesn't count any sort of crit, right? So we're going to do our best to go ahead and ignore that number there. And then we need to also consider, wait, let's go back for a second. We also need to consider this down here. The damage to slowed in center targets on a weapon that does. This damage number does not add in that 45%.
As far as I'm aware, this is all correct.
It just doesn't account for that. But we are going to make sure we account for that when we do our numbers. Otherwise, we're going to get skewed numbers that don't actually happen inside of the game. So very important to know, this number here, the 7,363, does, however, have this 20% from energy, right? So this 20% energy, if I had damage rolls on here, or if I had Ramirez, if I had Rescue Trooper Ramirez, she would also, her numbers would show as well. But basically, the only thing we need to account for is this number right here, that plus 20%. So what we got to do first is take our damage number here. We'll go over the calculator.
All right, we're going to skip through this just a little bit.
7,000. Hit that by 1. The actual base damage of this gun before.
So this is the actual base damage, not including the energy plus 20%.
Any numbers to it. This is big by 100. I want to like kind of cover everything without this, which is fine. So what we're gonna do,
we can skip forward a little bit here. He's basically just finding the total DPS.
Multiply that. We're gonna multiply that by our crit per chance, but it's not a failure as a 3.2. So
he's basically trying to find the real DPS, not this damage number that you see on there, not the DPS, the sheet DPS, the actual real DPS. That's what he's trying to find. And I will say I found it kind of funny. In his percents, you saw how he took out the 20% boost from it being energy out of this initial 7,000 damage. He adds that back in later, and I thought it was kind of funny. Like, why? What was the point?
We crit, we will do this much extra damage. This is the damage on top of our regular damage. So this plus our original damage, which was 13,193, would be the damage you actually multiply that by our 8.
Again, I feel like this is all correct. As far as I'm aware,
that we're gonna
all of this math is correct.
Per shot X is doing 30,000. 100 go 3%, but it's not.
So this 315,000 is the base sheet DPS, from what I can tell, of basically not using a sledgehammer, and just using, basically, if you were to be using Rescue Trooper Ramirez as your lead, this is the DPS you should be getting.
So now we're gonna do all the same math for Tactical Assault Sledgehammer. Thank you for the assist there, buddy. I don't think I'll be.
And you could kind of tell he was being extremely sarcastic with the little dude helping point out on the screen, which is a little weird. You know, if you don't. He goes. I'll talk about it more at the end of his video because he goes into a little bit, but. If you're trying to make the point that you shouldn't be sarcastic talking in the chat and talking down to people, then maybe you shouldn't use that guy when you're explaining the opposing side. Just maybe.
So, if we do the same process, we do the, was it 6,001,363? I forget what it was. You do that original number. I already did the math precursor wise. But
this is also a point I wanted to get into is. He's trying to show all the math here and try and make a valid argument as to why he thinks Sledgehammer is better than Ramirez. But he only walks through the math of Ramirez and not for Sledgehammer. What a great educational, informational video. Just fantastic.
But once we account for conditional damage I'm not going to by these same 0.38.
He's kind of doing the same math as he was last time, trying to figure out the real DPS again. As far as I can tell, I haven't run like any of this by Cthulhu or anything, our math guy, but as far as I can tell, it is all correct. So this is the initial, like, actual DPS of running Sledgehammer as your commander. If we're using the exact same Bobcat build. Now, this is still somewhat flawed, and I'll, again, get to that in a minute at the end. But as you can see, there's about a 20,000 damage per second difference. Now, that may seem like a lot, but in the end, it's not a true representation of the number. And again, I'm going to just explain it once at the end of the video on my side, but let's just continue this.
Over Rescue Trooper Ramirez. If you go with the Bobcat and you do not account for the conditional damage, you will find out that Rescue Trooper Ramirez outsnubs Tactical Assault Sledgehammer by about 2.2% if you do not account for the conditional damage.
So he even admits here that not accounting for the affliction damage or whatever, that Rescue Trooper Ramirez is better. It outsnubs Sledgehammer. Like, he's already admitting that it's better. Not by much, which is what I'll be getting into in a minute, but...
Which, this is a lesson in additive versus multiplicative. Because crit damage is a multiplicative of all damage, the more damage you stack, the better crit becomes. Essentially, it's kind of crit starts doing a better percentage of damage because of how the numbers work in the game. And the more damage you stack, and this is the problem with damage builds on weapons, is that the more damage you stack, the worse it becomes and the more enabled crit would become. Now, stuff like fire rate, yes, go test builds. You can go over the White Sushi calculator.
So what he's saying here is that one of the reasons that crit is better is that it stacks the damage on top of each other. Now, that may be true, but it's not the whole picture. Like, it may stack on top of each other, but again, you're pretty much waiting on this 30% chance up here, or whatever the percent chance of the Bobcat was. I think it was like 38 or something on the sheet. You're basically hoping for that percent. I think it was 38. You're basically waiting for a less than 40% chance. Less than a 4 in 10 chance to do slightly more damage than Ramirez. Now, can that build up over time to be a lot more? Probably. Could you end up getting, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 if you want to go play the lottery in a row and end up doing insane amounts of damage? Probably, but that's so unlikely that it probably will never happen.
You can check that out. You can try out different builds. There's crazy fire rate builds. This was just somebody, and this isn't just a Mr. Beast dude. This wasn't just him, but this was a lot of people that are saying Rescue Trooper Ramirez is better than Tactical Assault Sledgehammer.
Because she is.
And in the best case situation, for that to be true, with a base 10%, this is a base 10% weapon with very little damage stacked and doing everything in the favor of Rescue Trooper Ramirez, it's only a 2% gain. As soon as you start stacking multiple damages, you lose that edge. And the one main reason for it, right? Basically, this is what's happening. If we have a base damage of 100 and we add 30 damage because of a 30 damage perk.
Here he basically just explains additive versus multiplicative. Not really that important.
100, 60, that way. You favor the crit. You want to go build. There is the end all be all, and there's weird variations that you can do. But crit damage will always be a part of every single build, even if it is just running Tactical Assault Sledgehammer. But as always, as somebody who will sit here and min-max the numbers and show you all this, I will tell you, use what you enjoy.
Here's the big kicker.
Use what makes you enjoy playing the game. If you use a build and that build makes you want to shoot the gun more, go ahead and use that build because you're having fun. But this notion of spreading fake information as a content creator, saying that you're right when you're not doing the numbers properly and you're spreading misinformation, is not right. Because my job, and what I feel everybody's job as a content creator is is to give you guys the best understanding of how things work properly so you can make fair assessments.
Here's the big kicker, and what really kind of set me off about this is he admits in this video, you just heard it, that you can use whatever you want and get away with it. Yet he is saying that if you think Rescue Trooper Ramirez is better, you're flat out wrong. And there's absolutely no way that Rescue Trooper Ramirez is better. But, you know, you can use whatever you want, which is how we go about kind of saying whenever we talk about guns or troops with anybody, over on B stream or my stream, it's like, it's the world. And like I talked about earlier, you can use pretty much whatever you want and get away with it. Are some guns objectively better? Yes. Are some objectively worse? Yes. But you can get away with everything. But a crit build like with Sledgehammer is not objectively better in every single way than using Rescue Trooper Ramirez. That's not how that works. And I'll show you in a second. But the other big thing I wanted to touch on here is that he's using a crit build on a Bobcat, and he's using Ramirez. He's using the numbers for Ramirez on this crit chance Bobcat. If you were running Ramirez, you probably wouldn't be running a crit build on the Bobcat. You would probably be running a damage build. You probably wouldn't be running a crit build on the Bobcat. So your numbers are going to be slightly altered. Is that going to make an outstanding, huge difference? Probably not, but just a little nitpicky thing. So let me get into, you saw the numbers he posted earlier. There was about a 20,000 damage difference, which in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at 300,000+ DPSs and whatever, it's not that overly insane huge of a difference. Now let's get into this other picture if I can find it. Where is it? Right here. So these are the numbers that Cthulhu ran. I think Beast initially did it. He double checked it, found it was all good, passed it over to Cthulhu. Cthulhu double checked it, ran his own tests and whatever, and double checked it and made sure this was all good. And all this math checks out. You can double check this math. But basically what this math is doing here is basically we're just going to take the stats of a Hemlock. If it's doing 100 damage per bullet, and we're saying that it has a 43% crit chance and a 210% bonus crit damage before support squads and deals no headshots. So in this case, in a perfect ideal world where you shoot 100 bullets and 43 crit and 57 don't, which is exactly that 43% if we shoot 100 bullets, we're saying that 43 crit and 57 don't. So this is the math of adding up all those. If Ramirez is in your lead and Sledgehammer in support versus Sledgehammer in the lead and Ramirez in support. So if you run the numbers for Ramirez in the lead, you come out with 33,382. And if you crunch these numbers for Sledge in the lead, you get 33,584. Even less of a difference. 202 to be exact. That's basically a rounding error. With these numbers, 200 is basically a rounding error. Now, this is kind of funny, but he says down here, the two are basically identical, but Ramirez in the lead is more consistent, which is the big kicker. And he goes on to say Sledgehammer has higher highs and lower lows. But the reason we recommend Ramirez for us and anybody that asks is because it is more consistent. When you're using Sledgehammer and crit builds in general, you're relying on luck that you're going to be hitting crits. And even in the best a crit built Bobcat with a crit hero loadout, you have a 38% chance of hitting a crit. That is not something you should be relying on. Can you get away with it? Can it do insane damage? Can it be higher than Ramirez? Yes. But should you be relying on it? Do we think that you should be relying on it? No. We like consistent damage that we can count on all the time, which is why we use Ramirez. It is consistent damage. And that's a huge kicker here of why I got a little bit tilted, is because we never tell anybody what they should and shouldn't do, and we never say that one thing is insanely better than another when it isn't. We are just saying that they are identical. If you want the absolute max damage possible, but don't care about dipping under kind of like the medium point, go ahead, use Sledgehammer. But if you want that consistent damage, use Ramirez. And that's basically what we've been saying this entire time. We're not saying one is insanely better than another and one is insanely worse. We're just saying that they're pretty much identical and that we personally choose to use Ramirez because it is more consistent. And your own numbers support that. You got like 315 something for Ramirez and 335 something for Sledgehammer. That's not that big of a difference, especially when you take into account the fact that Ramirez isn't going to be using a crit Bobcat build or crit any gun build when you're using her most of the time. But yeah. And that I also wanted to get into, like, at the end he states here that, like, oh, as a fellow content creator, you shouldn't be telling people what's right and wrong, and you shouldn't be forcing people to do this and do that, where it's like, what kind of content creator are you to go shut down another content creator with a differing opinion that is still correct in every single way? Like, what does that make you? And I'm only responding here because he responded and blatantly called out Beast, instead of just making the video going over why he prefers crit builds versus damage builds. You know, that would have been enough, not calling out Beast, just making a plain old why he prefers crit build over damage builds. That would have been fine, and I would have left it and moved on. But he's blatantly calling out Beast here and saying and basically shaming Beast for having a differing opinion, which is entirely accurate. Like, Beast stats and all the numbers we've got are entirely accurate. Like, I don't get it. And you know, it's typical. I hate to say it, but it's pretty typical power level 130, like high power level save the world YouTubers and streamers that just talk down on everybody. Luckily, we've kind of avoided that. Of course, if you come in asking for suggestions, we're gonna tell you our suggestions and what we like running, but we're never gonna tell you, you know, use this and you're wrong if you think otherwise. That's just not okay. But anyways, I just wanted to cover this quick. Kind of ran on a little bit longer than I thought. I kind of been rambling here at the end. But if you want to join our Discord, we have a huge, great network of Save the World players on our Discord, link below. And I promise you, we won't be toxic unless you're toxic first. Yeah, adios.